Chapter 10. In the year 1692, in a small village located in Salem, Massachusetts, was the home location of a very powerful witch. In a small dark and dank jail cell sat a young woman. Her skin was a shade of peach white with dark dirty blonde hair and soft brown eyes. She was within her late 20s or earlier 30s, wearing the clothing of that time period. In the cell walked a man of his early 30s, coal black hair, a long spiny-looking nose with thick eyebrows and the beginning of a mustache. His hair came down to his shoulders and his eyes were sharp and determined. "Matthew," the woman said solemnly. "Hello, Melinda," the man smugly greeted. Why did you betray me?" Melinda asked, her voice soft with despair and defeat. "You got what you deserve," he said rather nastily with a cruel self-satisfied smirk on his lips. "So you've never loved me? All the passion and all the heat we shared meant nothing?" The sound of the heartbreak in her voice could be heard along with the same in her voice that she allowed herself to be seduced and swayed by words of a stranger. How she could have cheated on her spouse William. "I had to make you trust me. It was the only way to share your powers," he boasted rather arrogantly as he walked back and forth with an amused chuckle. "And so now you have them. So why would you turn me in? You know I'll burn," she pleaded one more time, her hand traveling up to the locket around her neck. The one that Matthew had given her. "I had to keep my secret," Matthew replied simply with a quick shrug of his shoulders. "Well, you can keep your trinkets too," she coldly snapped at him, yanking off the locket from his neck and threw it at him. "I'll find another witch to give it to," he said, opening the locket. "Maybe not," she said as Matthew takes out a little piece of paper and it catches on fire, to which he throws it on the ground. "What magic is this?" he demanded, his eyes narrowing dangerously at Melinda. "I'm taking back the powers you stole from me," she said as she began chanting a spell. "Outside of time, outside of gain, no only sorrow, no only pain." Wind begins kicking up around the cell as Matthew lets out an agonizing scream as he sucked into the locket. 307 years later, during the present day. Are those witches joking? They can't seriously believe they think we'll follow their demands. They are overstepping their boundaries. To say that most of the elders were not amused of the message Leo delivered would be like saying that yaoi fangirls who wrote Preg were only mildly fucked up in the head. I'm more concerned with this Naruto person. Who is he? What is his game, and how come we are just now finding out about him? Another elder voiced her concern. Our main concern should be finding out what we can about him. He could turn the charmed ones to side of evil, henceforth we should be focusing on eliminating him before he becomes a treat. Roland, Sandra, Odin, while your concerns are understood, this also leads to an opportunity that I believe can benefit the forces of good. Unlike Roland's objective tone, Sandra's passionate, or Odin's serious and controlled speech, this speaker was quite casual yet passionate in her words. I've once met a man who spoke in a similar manner to what Leo Wyatt told us. I believe he might have a connection to this man, and if so, this Uzumaki Naruto might be what is considered a self-appointed neutral. I believe he would be a more valuable ally than enemy, and if we attack him we risk alienating the charmed ones or others he might have brought under his fold during this time. When Adalia spoke, everyone listened. Adalia was one of the oldest and wisest amongst the elders, and it was with her wisdom that the founders persevered through hard times. While some of the elders made their objection noted, particularly Odin, they decided to give Adalia's suggestion consideration while they continue to look in on the mysterious blonde. On Earth at Buckland's, Prue's boss Rex was placing some jewelry on Prue's desk. He picks up the locket and tries to open it, but Prue and Naruto walk in. "Rex," Prue greeted in slight surprise as she approached her desk and boss. "Ah, good morning, Prue, and Mr. Uzumaki as well. Fancy seeing you here, again. I love Prue's taste," he responded with a shrug before quickly adding, "in art, it really brightens up my home. Which is why I'm here so early in the morning, as Miss Hallowell here helped me realize that some of the art I bought is part of a larger collection. So anyway, Prue, I've left a few things for you to catalog. A marvelous shipment from an estate back east," he informed her, but it was obvious by his gesture and tone of voice he was hiding something, nervous about something. I'll get right on it. She promised. Thanks, he said as he swiftly left the office. Wow, that was something, Naruto said as he sat on Prue's desk and pushed the locket to the side. Should I go get us some coffee? He asked as Prue nodded and went over to her desk, smoothing out her skirt and sat down in her chair. Black with sugar please. Speaking of sugar, Naruto said as he leaned over. Prue looked up and quickly pecked his lips. Be back in a sec, he said as he disappeared in a swirl of wind. Prue glanced down curiously at the locket Rex left behind. She picked it up and began examining and was about to open it when her phone went off. Hello, Bucklands, Prue Hallowell's office. How may I help you? Hello Prue, this is Andy. Upon hearing Andy's voice, Prue set the locket down. Andy, why are you calling? Look Prue, I've been thinking about what happened a couple of weeks ago and I might have been too hasty. I mean, I should have told you about me being married, and I believe you have good reason for telling me whatever it isn't you haven't told me, so I was hoping we could have dinner together, talk things out like we used to. Of course, once the truth spell was lifted, Andy didn't remember a thing, but she had moved on and she wasn't going to look back. Andy, I'm sorry but I can't. I'm seeing someone and I really can't talk right now, sorry, she said, hanging up the phone before the detective could respond. Prue decided that she might as well begin working in order to get her mind off the call. She picks up the locket and opens, and out of a gust of wind Matthew pops. Oh God, what now? Prue thought in annoyance. Matthew held his arms out and took a deep, refreshing breath. At long last, freedom, he observed with relief. He looked around at his surroundings curiously. And the world has changed. Matthew turned to Prue, whose eyes kept flickering from Matthew to the locket and back again. What time is this? Prue laughed nervously at the question. Excuse me, she asked in confusion. Where am I? Matthew replied, his eyes not leaving Prue. Who are you? Prue countered, beginning to overcome the original shock. Matthew Tate, Matthew answered as if it was obvious. Prue still stared at him in confusion and he continued. And if you freed me from that locket, you are a descendant of Melinda Warren. He moves over in Prue's direction, who upon instinct uses her power and sends him flying across the room. The impact against the wall would have stunned most people, but he got up as it was nothing. Thank you, he said with a smug grin. For what? Prue asked, confused, wondering just who this nut was and how she was going to have to explain all this. I tricked you into using your power on me. Now, I have it. He uses her power and a chair pushes her against the wall. When he disappeared, Prue attempted to move to the middle of the room and gather her bearings as she prepared for an attack when he appears behind her. Behind you, witch, he taunted as Prue spun around. How did you do that? Prue questioned as he once again approached her. I can share your power but you can't share mine, he taunted with a smug boyish grin. What do you want? She carefully asked him, trying to buy some time until Naruto got back. I want what Melinda took from me. I want all 3 powers back, he said, grabbing her left arm with his and throwing the other one around her to bind her in place. Defend yourself now, witch, and stop time, he commanded as Prue tried to break out of his hold. In futility, she used her power to pry him off, but it was working to no effect. I can't. Naruto teleports back in the room and sets the cups of coffees on the desk. Hey Prue, I got Danu. The blonde's eyes flared with anger upon seeing this strange assaulting Prue. Get away from her, he snarled as he charged at the warlock. As his nails were inches from Matthew's throat, he was sent flying back into the wall by a whitish blue aura. Naruto, Prue cried out as she yanked herself out of Matthew's grasp. So it appears you don't have the power. There are others, he said, teleporting over to the desk and picking up a desk plate. And the family name is now Hallowell. Prue, are you okay in there? Rex's voice echoed from outside the door. Matthew uses Prue's power to break the glass on the window. He jumps out the window and floats down to the ground, landing on his feet to the shock and confusion of everyone in the area as he simply walks away. Naruto, are you okay? Prue asked as she checked him over to make sure he was fine. Yeah, he said in response to her concern. What happened? She asked, getting over her initial confusion. To be honest, I don't know, he said, glancing at her office door. But something tells me this was no accident. The police were called to the scene, of course. It wasn't every day you hear about a man falling several stories high out of a building and walking away like he was fine. Detectives Andy and Morris were questioning a Buckland employee. He was in his 30s, frizzy yet well-kept red hair and beard, dressed in a business suit. I was just sitting there, you know, reading the sports, having a cup of joe, and bam, this guy comes flying out of nowhere, you know. Weird clothes, bad manners, he nearly fell right on top of me. When you say fell, Morris said with a gesture with his pen, waiting for the man to continue. I mean fell, you know, like from way up there, he said, pointing to the broken window. I guess. I don't know. He was honestly quite as startled and confused as all the civilians. That's a 10-story drop, sir. 12. Andy corrected Morris as his focus was intently on the office. And you're telling us that he just got up, walked away without a scratch. That's what you're saying? He asked the man again, as he didn't believe a word he was hearing. Being a police officer for years, you hear all sorts of crazy stories and run into unsavory people. Several of them wanting attention, and others were just plain crazy. Got a better explanation? Excuse us, Detective Morris said, leading Andy away. All right, Trudeau, pull out your secret ghost hunter decoder ring, and let's hear it. Andy chuckles in response. Look, Morris, I don't know, okay. All I know is whatever happened started up there in that office. He said, pointing to the office. Uh-huh. So let's find out whose office that is. I already know. It's Prue's, Andy informed him. At the manor, a Naruto clone was under the sink fixing it. At the table sat Phoebe, glancing over at the newspaper, and Piper was standing near the sink where the clone, who asked to be called Arashi, was working at. So I suggested we add crab satay to the lunch menu, and it was great. Sold out. Do you like crab, Arashi? It was a bit odd to refer to Naruto as to well Arashi, even if he was a clone. Why this particular clone seemed to have a bit more personality, she was going to have to ask the blonde. Yeah, are you kidding? I love the stuff. But I tend to eat shrimp more often. Hey, do you mind getting me the ratchet extension? Sure. Piper looks in his toolbox but didn't know which tool was the ratchet extension. Phoebe walks over and pulls out the ratchet extension. I knew that. She takes it off Phoebe and gives it to Arashi. Here you go. Thanks. Stop it. Go away. Piper whispered to Phoebe to try and get her to go away. Be right back, Arashi. No problem. Will you stop it already? Piper said in an annoyed huff as she folded her arms and turned to Phoebe. She wasn't quite sure what it was, but Phoebe had been acting strangely the past few days. My sentiments exactly. Stop hinting around and ask him out already. It was obvious that Piper had affection for Arashi, who, after giving it some thought, Phoebe decided to try and let go of her crush on Naruto. She didn't want to get in the way of Piper's happiness, and she decided there was no point in pursuing a guy who didn't have an interest in her. At least this way one of them would be happy. Give him some of your crab, she said, plastering a smile on her face, trying to show her support. Don't be disgusting, Piper snapped with a roll of her eyes. Don't be so shy, Phoebe countered with a look that clearly said she thought Piper's shyness was infuriating to work with. What if he says no? Worry etched on her face. Yeah, like that'll happen, she said in disbelief with a slight head nod. I don't know what you're so worried about. You two have a lot in common. I'm serious, Phoebe, Piper responded as the worry on her face became more evident and she began futzing around with the tablecloth. Piper had a habit of trying to fix seemingly crooked things when she was nervous. Will you stop that? Phoebe said, moving Piper away from the table. I'm serious, Piper. Unless you want him to think you're not interested, you better make a move, or are we forgetting you know who has chemistry with him as well? The two wasn't quite sure what it was, but there was something different in Prue's body language and how she acted around Naruto. I know, it's job that I've never, you know, she said, glancing to where Arashi was entitled, her head down. You're kidding, right? No, she said, shaking her head. You've never asked a guy out before? Not on a real date? No, she admitted to her dismay. I don't understand. Am I the only person in this family who's inherited the take a chance gene? Probably. 'Cause if I remember my biology correctly, it's attached to the can't mind my own business gene. She said, all the while rolling her eyes and snarking back. Oh, go. Phoebe said, pushing Piper back into the kitchen as Arashi came from under the sink. And I am done, he said, then sighs. How did I go from a combatant and subconscious personality to handyman? He said as his head dropped. Mind if I go use your bathroom? Yeah. You know where it is, right? Piper asked, fidgeting a bit. Yeah, thanks, he said as he sped out of the room. I'll have some tea here for you if you want some. The last few words were mumbled as she got some tea out of the fridge and set it on the table. Geez, I guess you must be the type that lets the guy do all the work in bed. Huh, Phoebe said as she pulled up a seat at the counter. Phoebe, ew, Piper remarked as her face scrunched up. Well, tell me I'm wrong, she said with a hand gesturing, accidentally knocking off the tea, to which Piper freezes it before it falls on the floor. Could you be a little more careful? She said, picking up the pitcher. When Naruto gets back I'll ask him, okay? Sorry. But hey, here's something that comes to mind. You got a new weapon in your arsenal. If you use that you'll have more than enough time. Phoebe said with an impish grin and grabbing a banana. Oh, come on. You just don't know when to stop. I'm not going to use my power to have my way with him, she said with a whisper as she glanced over at the door to see if he was coming in. In response to Piper's statement, Phoebe began roaring with laughter. Hey, you came up with that conclusion all on your own. I never said anything about having your way with him. Looks like there's hope for you yet, she said, peeling the banana. You didn't have to say it, you were thinking it. You're shameful like that. Piper trailed off only to be cut off by Phoebe. Hey, I'm not that shameful, she said with a pout as she began going to town on her banana. You're so lucky, you know. You know what I would do if I had your power. No, and I don't want to know because I don't feel like trying to find a therapist among my list of things. With a loud thwack and coming from the other room, the sisters were alerted. As they were about to prepare for an attack, Naruto and Prue walked in. You guys, we are in serious trouble, Prue said without so much as a hello. Well, hello to you too. Single quote. Let me guess, problem of the week? Piper asked, knowing she was going to have to cancel her plan to ask Naruto out to dinner for tonight. Yeah, only our problem has some sort of protective shield that keeps me from harming him, so this isn't going to be a quick fix either, Naruto sullenly remarked. Around that same time at Buckland's, Detective Trudeau was questioning Rex and Hannah. Hannah Webster. The frizzy redhead introduced herself. You said you heard some noises in here. What kind? The detective pressed on. It's hard to say, the woman remarked with a look of uncertainty. It almost sounded like a struggle of some sort. A fight perhaps, Rex added as Andy wrote it down. Yeah, and then we heard a crash and I assumed that was the window breaking and we came in to check on Prue and then she just went running out. What did she say? Anything about what happened? Detective Morris asked as Hannah shook her head. Nothing, actually, she just left. Well, Mr. Uzumaki was leaving with her too. They seemed to be going in the same place, she added as Andy looked up. Uzumaki, as in Naruto Uzumaki. Well, at least I think it's Uzumaki or Namikaze. I think he used both on his business card, but he was definitely there. They seemed quite agitated. Did either of them say a word of what was going on or what they were doing? No, sorry, Rex answered. Okay, thanks, Mr. Buckland. CSI will be done with the windows in a couple of hours and you can have them fixed, Detective Morris informed the Buckland employees. Believe me, Inspector, I really don't care about the window, my only concern is for my employee Prue. With that, the two employees had left as the two detectives were talking amongst themselves. Look, maybe you ought to ask the captain to assign somebody else. Prue and I aren't dating anymore, there's no conflict, okay, so I'm fine with this. If you say so, he said as they walked down the hallway and got in the elevator. I thought that went exceedingly well. Didn't you? Rex asked with a rather smug grin. He thought their performance was well and it looks like that the plan to kill the Charmed Ones We may have proven the legend of the locket true and that the little witch is charmed, but now we have a 17th century warlock running around. I think he'll stick out. Hannah voiced her concern. The warlock could still be tracked back to them, and the higher-ups did not take any plans that could expose the charade lightly. Yep. But then again, if the legend does hold true, Matthew's got a one-track mind just like we do. He won't be difficult to find, so stop worrying, Hannah, or you're gonna get wrinkles on your horns. He said as he wrapped his arms around her, to which the woman smiled and snuggled up against him. At the manor, the sisters Charmed and Naruto were in the attic thumbing through the Book of Shadows. What did you say his name was? Piper asked as she thumbed through page to page to find an image of the man Naruto and Prue described. Matthew Tate. And somehow he knows that we're related to Melinda Warren. Prue said as she walked back and forth. The Book of Shadows, Melinda. Our ancestor. Phoebe asked for clarification as Prue nodded. The one who burned at stake and started this whole mess. Piper remarked with a hint of exasperation. That's not fair to blame her for this, Piper. Naruto said as he stepped away from the window he was looking out of her. What you have are gifts, not curses. And for the damnedest reason this all feels so familiar to me. Where did you say he came from again, Prue? He came out of the locket. Locket. Naruto mumbled as he held the object in his fingers, as there was something scratching at the back of his mind. And he's definitely powerful. Whatever his powers are, they were stronger than mine, and he did the weirdest thing. 1 minute he was in front of me, the next he was behind me, and then 12 stories down landed right on his feet. Whoever he is, he wants the power of the Charmed Ones, and he already has my power of telekinesis. Sounds like he has the power to blink. Naruto answered as he continued to examine the locket. Care to go into a little more detail? It's a teleportation power that originally belonged to witches. It allows the user to transport oneself to a thought of location or a person in a blink of the eye. It's instantaneous movement, which is usually accompanied by a short, sharp sound. This power now manifests among warlocks now. Okay, back up, I'm confused. How does a power that was primarily witches just stops manifesting in witches and now begins manifesting in warlocks? Correct me if I'm wrong, but this sounds like a genetics sort of thing, especially considering how the three of us got our power from our family line. So is there something I'm missing, or is there an overly complicated explanation you can give us, then break down into a brief summary? Naruto could only shrug in response to Phoebe's question. To be honest, I don't quite know myself. I can look into it, but when it comes to the blinking thing, I honestly don't know. So yeah, this guy is definitely a warlock. Do you think you can get a premonition from this? Naruto asked as he walked over to Phoebe and hands it to her. Phoebe took a deep breath and began focusing. She let out a gasp as images assault her mind. Well, you can keep your trinkets too, Melinda said, yanking off the locket from his neck and threw it at him. I'll find another witch to give it to, he said, opening the locket. Maybe not, she said as Matthew takes out a little piece of paper and it catches on fire, to which he throws it on the ground. What magic is this? I'm taking back the powers you stole from me, she said as she began chanting a spell which resulted in Matthew being sealed into the locket. You said Matthew came out of the locket? I think I just saw Melinda put him in, Phoebe explained. You saw the past? Prue asked in surprise. But you only see the future, don't you? Piper noted. Not anymore, she decided, glancing down at the locket suspiciously. Power expansion, Naruto spoke up. Your primary powers will grow in time, to which secondary powers will grow soon after. We'll need the help of Melinda Warren to trap this guy, and some answers as well, particularly why he has a barrier that repels me. So I can see into the past now. Would it had been too much to ask for the ability to fly? Phoebe asked, disappointed as Piper and Prue went over to hug their sister and tried to soothe her disappointment. At an attorney's office, which will probably never be brought up again, sat Arnold Hallowell. He was an older man wearing a suit with receded hair and fading gray hair. He was just an average attorney, and he was on the phone being an unfortunate attorney, lawyer stereotype that most people hate. They want to counter-sue. Fine, bring it on, I'll eat him alive. Plus, we can double bill and get away with it. Matthew blinks in the room. Excuse me. He hangs up the phone. Are you Arnold Hallowell? He asked, pointing to the name around the middle of his paper. Yeah, and who are you? Robin Hood. He asked in response to Matthew's out-of-place wardrobe as he reached for the button under his desk to silently alert security. The warlock in response uses telekinesis and Arnold flies up against the wall. Tell me where your sisters are. Matthew ordered, using telekinesis to tighten Arnold's collar around his neck. What sisters? I'm an only child. Let me go or I'll sue you. This was the wrong answer as Matthew promptly broke his neck. Lawyers have not changed. He commented before blinking out. As Matthew continued his hunt, the quarter went about trying to find information about Melinda Warren. The quartet found an image of Melinda in one of the family's photo albums. I was right. It was Melinda in my vision. Isn't she beautiful? Phoebe said, holding up the book and showing off the picture. She kind of looks like Mom. Prue noted as she studied the picture. Listen to this. And because the warlock had stolen her love, she cursed him into the pewter heart, where he could spend eternity knowing the sting of betrayal. That must be what I saw. Phoebe stated. And I let him out early. Great. Prue said with an dejected look as Naruto placed a comforting arm around her. Hey, it's not your fault, Prue. You had no way of knowing and you were just doing your job. There's something I want to talk to you three about, but we should focus on our warlock problem first. Does the book say anything else, Piper? Yeah, the legend says that the warlock must never be freed or he will destroy the Warren line. That'd be us. Yeah, well, he'll have to take a number and get in line behind the others warlocks. Piper noted. We've never been up against anyone like him before, and considering our ace can't even touch him, we are in more danger than ever before. Prue added. So, what do we do? Phoebe was starting to get worried. They couldn't use their powers or he'll copy them, and Naruto couldn't attack him because of the barrier, so what could they do? Piper was going to suggest they run, but something inside of her stopped her. She wanted to change but wasn't quite sure how, but the Dreamwalker's words motivated her to at least try. What about his allies? Piper spoke up. We can't fight Tate directly, so is there anyone you know who could help us, Naruto? Maybe. Hopefully I'll get answer. Naruto said, pulling out his cell phone. You do that and we'll see if we can find a way track down Tate. The quartet decided they would focus their efforts on tracking down. The quartet entered the living room. Phoebe turned on the TV. Phoebe settled on the news as something caught her attention. This morning witnesses claim they saw a man fall 12 stories. He apparently got up and walked away unharmed. The reporter said as images of Buckland kept popping up. She got up from the couch and went over to the door as she thought she heard something. We gotta find him before he hurts somebody else, especially an innocent. Look, Andy's on TV. Piper stated as his face was one of the many cops that appeared. He's here, too, Phoebe said, peering out from the curtains. The doorbell rings and Phoebe answers it. Phoebe hesitantly opened the door to find Andy on the doorstep. Andy, what a surprise. How you been? She asked, feigning surprise as she stepped onto the threshold and closed the door behind her. I need to talk to Prue, Phoebe. Andy replied, ignoring the question. He always could tell when the sisters were hiding something and Phoebe was sending off all the signals. Prue, wow, how out of the loop am I? And here I thought you guys broke up. Phoebe brought up as a reminder to how uncomfortable these situations were because of the usual circumstances. It's not about that. It's police business. He informed her as he tried to peer in only for Phoebe to block his way, impressive considering how much shorter she was in comparison. Oh, well, she's not home. She's at work. She stated in a brain fart sort of something. No, she's not, Andy retorted harshly, with a slight shake of his head. Well, then, I don't know where she is, but I'll tell her that you stopped by, okay? Ciao, Phoebe said as she tried to close the door only for Andy to grab her arm. A man fell out of Prue's office window, which is suspicious enough. But then a man matching the same description went and killed a lawyer down the street. A lawyer named Hallowell. Now I know she knows who he is. One more time, Phoebe, where's your sister? He asked firmly as Phoebe dropped the pretenses of being nice. Where's your warrant? She asked, to which he didn't answer, and Phoebe went back inside. Once Andy left, the sisters went back to talking. Great. So now I'm being hunted by a warlock in the San Francisco PD. Nobody ever said you led a boring life, Prue. Well, for one thing, even if he can be found, then what? I mean, he has protection against Naruto of all people, so he has some sort of awareness of what he'll come up against. So we need someone who knows him. We need Melina Warren. In response to Piper's summation, Prue couldn't help but ask, okay, so what are we supposed to do? Reach back in time, grab her and tell her that we need her help. Yes. Phoebe spoke up, remembering something she saw in the book once, and I know exactly how to do it, as long as you both don't mind losing a little blood. The three Ps were gathered around a table where candles, a dagger, and other items were laid out on the table. Am I the only one having the second thoughts? Piper couldn't help but ask. Summoning her dead ancestor was definitely on the way out there on her spectrum of weirdness. Yes. Phoebe answered rather quickly. We don't really have any others options. Prue pointed out, not sounding too happy with the plan herself, but realizing they had limited choices. But aren't we, like, raising the dead? What if she's all? Piper trailed off. I read the Book of Shadows very carefully. She will come back as a real live person, flesh and blood. She will have her powers too. Our powers. She corrected as she picked up the knife. What's that for? Piper squeaked upon seeing her sister casually handle the knife. Well, the spell works by blood calling blood, so it shouldn't hurt much. Phoebe said, stabbing one of her fingers, and let out an audibly cry. I lied, she said, wincing. Okay, come on guys. It'll be just like the summer by the lake. Remember when we made a blood oath to be friends forever, not just sisters? Prue takes the knife off of Phoebe. I remember my finger got infected, she said as she frowned back at the memory. Prue stabs her finger. Ow. Yeah, but the oath worked. Prue holds out the knife for Piper. And I couldn't go in the water for 3 weeks. Don't hand me that knife, she said, moving away from the knife. How are you gonna cut yourself? I'm not, she said, shaking her head and looking away. Piper, Phoebe said in amused tone. I can't stand the sight of blood, she said, raising her voice slightly as she guarded herself. Prue narrowed her eyes slightly. Evil beings have blown up in our attic. Disintegrated to dust right before our very eyes. Phoebe continued. And you're afraid of a little drop of blood. Prue finished with a roll of her eyes. Piper took a deep breath and held her finger out to Prue. Okay, just cut my finger. She relented, looking away and closing her eyes. Prue frowned slightly and passed the knife to Phoebe. You do it, she ordered. Phoebe nodded and quickly poked Piper's finger before she could change her mind. Ow, Piper yelled, jumping and pulling her hand away. Okay, here, Prue said as they squeezed their fingers and the blood drips into a locket. Phoebe closes it and places it in a bowl. Melinda Warren, blood of our blood. They all began chanting. Our great, 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 grandmother. We summon thee. White orb lights magically appear in the attic and swirl around in a concentrated area. Melinda Warren appears. Piper stares at her wide-eyed. Prue looks at her sisters and smiles. Phoebe, though, was already smiling. Melinda Warren takes a deep, refreshing breath of air and smiles. Oh, blessed be. Trying to get over the sense of being overwhelmed, Phoebe was the first to speak up. Hello, Melinda. I'm Phoebe, she remarked rather shyly as she stood up rather awkwardly. This feeling was a bit more than she expected. Oh, young one, may you not welcome me into your arms? Melinda asked, opening her arms. Yeah, Phoebe said as she embraced her ancestor. The scene repeated with various states of awkwardness and uncertainty as Prue and Piper introduced themselves as well. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle at the scene. Melinda, we need your help, Phoebe told her urgently. But before we get to that, we like you to meet. Oh, Naruto. You are well, Melinda said, completely ignoring her descendant as she practically floated over to the blonde and pulled him into a rather affectionate hug. To his credit, Naruto was just as confused as the sisters were. He looked to the sisters and noticed their confusion, but what stood out was Prue's, "What the hell, look. I'm sorry. Hell, he didn't know what to say. Did they meet in the past?" Melinda pulled out of the embrace. "You look just as handsome as I remember," she said, taking glances at both sides of his face. "So Melinda," Prue spoke up, not so subtly moving in between her ancestor and her boyfriend. "How do you two know each other?" It nearly impossible to miss the possessiveness in Prue's tone. "Naruto was my confidant, my ally. In fact, if it wasn't for certain circumstances, things would have been different." The way the words were spoken was not lost on them, as well as the looks she was shooting Naruto. "Amusing," Prue said with a strained chuckle. "Hey," Naruto loudly and suddenly declared. "Why don't we start getting to work on that problem? The one we called Melinda for. In fact, why don't we get her some clothes so she doesn't stick out?" he said, rushing out of the attic. A few minutes later, Melinda and Phoebe were in Phoebe's room, where various clothing items are scattered on Phoebe's bed. Phoebe unzips the green, sleeveless dress. "No, don't rip the dress to make it fit me," Melinda exclaimed suddenly, causing Phoebe to jump slightly in surprise. "No, I'm not ripping it. It's called a zipper, see?" Phoebe shows Melinda how a zipper works. She takes the dress and plays with the zipper, smiling as she does. "Oh, okay. A wise witch made this," she decided with a smile as she zipped and unzipped the dress. "Yeah, and wise witches in this century keep a low profile. You slip this dress on, you'll blend right in." Melinda puts the dress on. "It's so odd to be here again, to breathe and feel. What sheep has wool so soft?" "A synthetic one," Phoebe answered as she softly laughed at the question. Phoebe zips the dress up. "Oh, so, did it take you long to make the dress?" "Make it? No, I bought it," Phoebe explained. Melinda nodded slightly. "Oh, you must be rich," she replied in understanding. Her sisters walk in, hearing the last of the conversation. "No, she's got credit cards," Prue pleasantly corrected as she and Piper entered the room. "Oh, wow, Melinda, you look great," Piper complimented her. "Thank you. Oh, but how do you keep your legs warm?" she asked, glancing down at the length of the dress. After all, not being completely covered up was unheard of from her time. "We drink coffee." Prue entered as Naruto approaches the doorway. Melinda. You look nice." The compliment he gave was forced, as he couldn't help the uneasiness he felt at the fact that this woman knew him and he couldn't recall anything about her. "You are distant, Naruto. You act as if you don't remember me," she said as she noticed Naruto's distant looks and uneasy behavior. "That's the problem. I don't," he answered as he massaged his forehead with his palm. "I really don't. You must have perished in battle," Melinda finished with a gasp. "Oh, to go through such a horrid tragedy and be forced to forsake the gems that is your memories. Will you be able to reclaim them?" "Sometimes, but that's not always the case. The reformation process. This was something that Naruto thought was something only the 9 Biju could do when their container was slain, but apparently he adapted this ability as well when he fully inherited Ashura's will. Well, blessed it be that you were able to find yourself to my family again despite your ailment. Your judgment is one I value. If only I valued it then," she said rather cryptically, which wasn't lost on the blonde. The quartet wasn't the only one adding to their numbers. At the Hallowell Hardware and Appliance, the store owner was dead and hooked up on the wall by some garden tools. Matthew had just finished off his latest murder when Rex and Hannah showed up. "Hello, Matthew," Rex greeted as Hannah glanced over him. "We have got to do something about his clothes," Hannah remarked before Matthew had time to respond. Matthew narrowed his eyes in suspicion. "Who are you? How do you know me?" he demanded. "Well, the short answer is we're the ones who gave the witch the locket to have you freed. I suppose you could say we're partners," Rex explained simply. Matthew shook his head in disagreement. "I work alone." Rex frowned and narrowed his eyes. "No, not in this century you don't. You're new in town, new in time, you need our help," he argued. His eyes flickered to see the shop owner hooked to the wall. I see you've been shopping. Find what you're looking for?" I want Melinda Warren's children. He simply informed them. Hannah smiled and her eyes flickered from the shop owner's dead body back to Matthew. Ooh, talk about your coincidences. She pointed out, looking pointedly at Rex. You see, we have the means to find them for you. And you have the ability to take their powers. Come, Rex ordered, turning to leave the shop before the police arrived. He glanced back when Matthew didn't immediately follow. What? How'd you find me? Matthew asked. Rex laughed and rolled his eyes. Prue Hallowell, a Hallowell attorney, now here. You are leaving a trail, my friend, and that has got to stop. He warned. Back at the manor, Melinda was telling the quarter her story. She was sat at the head of the dining room table along with Piper and Phoebe. Prue puts the locket back around her neck. Once Matthew had what he wanted, he told the town council I was a witch and they arrested me. Then they burned me at the stake. Why didn't you save yourself? Piper asked her. Yeah, why didn't you use your powers to escape? Phoebe added as Melinda began rubbing her hands and elaborated on why she didn't save herself when she was capable of doing so. I had a daughter. Her name was Prudence and she meant everything to me. If I'd used my powers, I would have proven Matthew's charge, and Prudence would have burned, too. So I thought, I'll accept this, and pray some kind soul will take pity on my daughter and raise her in a safe home. Only then can the Warren line continue. And it must have worked, because here you are. Why do Warren witches lose their moms so early? Phoebe asked her as this bit of information brought back the pain she felt due to the fact she never got to know her mother. Phoebe, I can't change the past, but I think I can protect the future. So why does Matthew have that protective shield I can't get through? Naruto asked as he got off his cell phone. I tried to attack him and I was propelled. What was that about? Forgive me. Matthew fooled me into casting a protection charm on him. He brought me the hair that he said belonged to a demon that was hunting him down to steal his youth. I used the special stone you gave me as the focus. Matthew still probably has it inside his locket which never leaves his person. Shit. Naruto wore as he began pacing back and forth. Xenodyne-powered protection. Just my luck. What's Xenodyne? Prue asked as she noticed Naruto's worry. It's a very special ore that exists in all worlds. It can take the form or shape of nearly any mineral that exists in a world. Rumor has it that it's created as a result of dimensions dying or anytime time itself has an error. All I can tell you that's its property, it's extremely deadly. Human, demon, angel or any matter of creatures, it doesn't matter if a strong enough concentration of that stuff is used, then even gods can be killed by it. Then we must hurry. If Matthew gains all three powers, he will be impossible to vanquish. So what do we do? Phoebe asked. We curse him back in the locket. Melinda decided. And if we can't? Piper asked as nothing but silence follows. Back at Buckland's, Matthew was putting on some new clothes and Hannah was sitting on a chair with her back to him. Are these pants meant to be so tight? Matthew questioned, as he forced the zipper of his jeans up. He looked up at Hannah, who casually had her back to him, though every now and then her eyes would flicker to check him out. Hannah slowly peeked over her shoulder at him before looking away again. Wow, she mouthed to herself, though she spoke with a more neutral. Absolutely. No wonder your men frown all the time, it's a wonder they can even walk. So is this right? He asked Hannah, who once again glanced over her shoulder at him. Oh, yeah, Hannah replied, nodding to herself. Matthew didn't miss the not-so-subtle glances toward him. If it pleases you to look, look. He allowed with a shrug. I wasn't looking, Hannah argued. Much, she conceded after a moment. Matthew slowly approached her, looking a little confused. Why the false modesty? I don't understand. Matthew admitted, leaning against her chair and coming level to her face. Hannah hesitated a moment as he came so close to her. Well, it's a very complex issue these days. I mean, there's political correctness, sexual harassment, don't get me started, she laughed softly, looking away from him. What a strange time this is. So open yet so closed. Where even a warlock feels shame. Matthew commented. Hannah, Rex began as he suddenly entered his office. His eyes focused on Matthew and Hannah so close together and he narrowed his eyes. What the devil? Hannah laughed casually in an attempt to hide her slight embarrassment. Rex, I told you I'd get him dressed. She reminded him. Rex irritably closed his office door behind him. Yeah, 10 minutes ago. Hannah began to say something else, but Matthew beat her to it. Well, we tried on many things. She said it is difficult to choose. He explained. Playtime's over, big boy. You have a job to do. Rex snapped, causing Matthew to move away to grab a shirt. Rex quickly approached Hannah and whispered in her ear. Remember, he goes back from whence he came once his task is completed. During that same time at the manor the quintet was working on the potion. I can't believe I don't remember all the ingredients. Melinda said as she looked between all the vials and tried to remember it. This very potion was one she had to use to curse another warlock prior to Matthew. It's been a while since you cursed Matthew. Prue said, handing her a vial. Phoebe followed after Prue, chuckling at the truth of the statement. Yeah, like 300 years. She laughed. Whatever you don't remember should be in the book. Piper suggested as they went through the book. The Book of Shadows. Oh, my, it's gotten so thick. Melinda whispered happily as she picked up the familiar book and flipped around randomly. It wasn't always. Prue asked her because as far as they knew the Book of Shadows was always that thick. No, but obviously each generation of Warren witches has added to it over the years and has made it so. Have you added anything? Us? Are you kidding? We're new at this. We can't just make up our own spell. Phoebe laughed before she suddenly thought through the question. Wait, can we? Yeah, they're still trying to get a handle on their abilities, let alone making up spells and such, Naruto said as Melina handed him back to the book so he and Piper could look through it. Wait, we can make up our own spells? How come you never told us? Phoebe asked him with an accusatory glance. Considering you still don't have most of the ingredients memorized and adding one wrong ingredient in a potion can blow up the mansion, I thought not just jumping right in would be the smart thing. When you girls are ready you will add to the book like all Warren witches before you. The book will grow as you grow. Sometimes you add to it, sometimes it teaches you. Melinda said as she went over to the book. Oh, here's the curse. Prue hands her a pencil and paper to which Melinda looks at it confused. Just start writing. Prue responded simply. Melinda was still looking doubtfully at the pencil. No ink? She asked. Prue shook her head. No. She smiled and watched as Melinda began to write with the pencil. Ha! Melinda exclaimed in surprise. Grams must have added this one. Piper noted as she looked on the opposite page. To increase patience. Melinda read as Phoebe smiled. I bet she used that spell a lot, raising us, huh? Phoebe guessed, nudging Prue with her elbow pointedly. We weren't all troublemakers, Phoebe. Prue countered playfully as she remembered the little hell maker Phoebe was. I was not a troublemaker. I was just. Phoebe trailed off trying to find the right words. A pain. Piper finished teasingly. A free spirit. Phoebe corrected. A handful. Prue countered with a laugh. A Warren. Melinda decided for all of them as Phoebe and Prue cast teasing glances at each other. It's a family trait. So are the short tempers, the great cheekbones, the strong wills, and, of course, the powers. All blessings, all signs of where you came from. This book is your connection and it began with me. Prue looked from Melinda to each of her sisters in turn. Well, let's make sure it doesn't end with us. We need to get going. She ordered, hurrying her sisters along after her. Around that time the opposition were getting ready for battle as well. At Buckland's, Rex's office, Matthew was being shown pictures of Prue, Piper and Phoebe. Now, this is Prue, you've already met. This is Piper, and this is Phoebe. Such marvelous paintings. You cannot feel the brushstrokes. He said, rubbing his fingers over the photographs. Remind us to take you to the movies when this is all over. This is the address of Quake. Piper works there. May I suggest that you go there next and take her power? Hannah will drive you. In the manor kitchen the potion was in the process of being made. Prue was staring out the window. The curse is really simple as long as you have the ingredients I need. Melinda said, giving Piper the list of ingredients as she looked it over. Phoebe can do the spices and I'll chop the scallions. Piper decided. This is so cool. We've never done a curse before. Despite the situation, Phoebe couldn't contain her excitement. After all, out of the three, she was the one most excited about magic. I'm glad. They're not to be taken lightly, she informed Phoebe, warning her to be cautious. She remembered she was a lot like Phoebe when she was introduced to the world of magic. It was such a wondrous thing and she wanted to know everything. I just feel like there's so much we could be learning or doing if we had the right teacher, she said, much to Naruto's ire. Thanks, Naruto dryly remarked. No offense. I didn't mean anything by that, of course. I mean you're going to start training us in combat, right? And other stuff like knowledge and well, you said it yourself, most of the potions you know are written down and stuff, for the reason that, well, you don't use potions and curses that much. She stammered over her words as Naruto hung his head. Sure, okay, he said with a hand gesture and a mock look of indifference. Well, I'd savor my first gift before I move on to the next one, Melinda advised. Phoebe frowned at the thought. I see pictures. What's to savor? She asked in frustration. You'll see visions of the future and the past. That'll allow you to protect and to heal, Melinda answered knowingly. Phoebe looked up thoughtfully. Did you hear that, Prue? She called with a pointed glance toward where Prue was silently staring out the window, obviously searching for Andy. Prue, stop looking for Andy, he should be long gone by now, Piper added as she checked on the potion. He's going to be back with a warrant, I just know it. Especially considering this morning, she said absent-mindedly, which snapped Naruto out of his funk as he was wondering what she was talking about. Yeah, like Andy would ever arrest you, Phoebe said in response to Prue's worry. Prue walks over to them. So do we have everything? Actually, there's a few herbs we don't have, but I can get them at the restaurant. The only problem is the feather from the spotted owl, Phoebe answered, looking over the list again. Is that a problem? Melinda wondered as she noticed the sisters' sudden change in demeanor. Well, they're an endangered species. Certain animals from your time aren't really around anymore, Prue explained to Melinda with unease. Why? Deforestation, pollution, it's a long story. Do you think they have one at the zoo? Piper spoke up, as a zoo would be an obvious choice to find an endangered animal that was being protected from extinction, or an animal reserve. What's a zoo? Melinda wondered aloud. In theory, it's this big garden kind of place where all the animals are caged in. You know what? I'll work on the feather, Prue hastily interrupted Phoebe as she didn't want to upset Melinda. Piper, can you handle the herbs? Yeah, after I get to Quake. Though I might have a problem getting out because I'm supposed to work the night shift. Well, I'll come with you and bring back the stuff if you get hung up, Phoebe suggested. No, you can't leave the house. You are the two Matthew needs, Melinda added, frowning slightly at the plan so far. We'll be fine. How could Matthew even know about Quake? Piper reassured her, not appearing too worried. Melinda continued to frown, but didn't stop them as they left. Melinda's right, Naruto spoke up as he moved over to Prue's side. I'll go with Prue because he might get the idea to try to use her as a hostage if he somehow finds out you three are sisters. I'll send a clone with you two to protect you. True enough, Hannah and Matthew were sitting in a car across the street from Quake. I've waited over 300 years for my revenge. As soon as Piper gets here, I shall have it, he said as the trio walked in through the front door. You two go ahead into the kitchen. I'm gonna cough on Martin and tell him I'm highly contagious, so can I go home? Love the plan, Phoebe responded with an amused grin as she and Arashi went into the kitchen. A waitress walks up to Piper. Hey, Piper, did your sweetie find you? A red-haired waitress that was slightly younger asked her. My what? Piper spun around in confusion. That guy with the English accent. He called earlier to see if you were working today, the waitress replied. As Piper was being informed, Phoebe and Arashi were in the kitchen. Looks like it's my lucky day. 2 witches for the price of 1, Matthew said as he used telekinesis to flung Arashi into the wall. Luckily enough or unluckily depending on how you look at it, good thing there was no one in the kitchen during the attack as it was awfully convenient. Matthew lunged at Phoebe and was about to grab her when several shuriken embedded in his shoulder causing him to stumble back and roar in pain. Hey, what do you know? Shuriken beats shield, Arashi said as he took out several more. Matthew merely snarled and tried to use the second powers again to no effect. Arashi flung more shuriken only for Matthew to blink away. Oh damn it. Piper comes in as it was all over. What happened? You two okay? Yeah, Matthew attacked, though, thanks to Arashi, he didn't get my power. Look, we should get back to the mansion before Matthew finds out that Melinda is back. Naruto and Prue were in her car and on their way to a museum where Prue used to work. So, you and Melinda, huh? Prue asked as Naruto shifted in his seat. I don't remember, Prue. There's this process to where if I'm on the verge of death I could reconstitute myself, but the process leaves me weaker and slightly fractures my mind. It's based off the principle of another group of species from my world, but a human mind is different from theirs, so it isn't built in a way to handle the process as well. Well, considering you could have possibly been my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, you can see how I'm a little bit weirded out. Fine, I give you that, but that doesn't change how I feel about you. He said as Prue didn't say anything as she continued to driving. Back at Buckland's, Hannah arrived in Rex's office. Rex was casually spread across the couch in his office when Hannah walked in, appearing as if she dreaded to start the conversation. You lost him, Rex stated, without opening his eyes to look at her. Hannah narrowed her eyes at him in exasperation. We've had this conversation before, Rex. Please stay out of my mind. Rex finally looked up to meet her eyes. Well, did he copy Piper's power? He asked hopefully. I have no idea. Something happened in that restaurant though because he just took off. And so did they, Hannah explained, pulling her glasses off in her frustration. Then why didn't you follow him? Rex questioned angrily, flipping around so that he was sitting up against the couch. Hannah threw her hands up dramatically at the expected shift of blame. I tried. Why don't you just follow him right now? Hannah demanded. Because I haven't mastered that ability yet, unfortunately. Rex admitted with a frown while Hannah rolled her eyes at his answer. Rex narrowed his eyes and quickly approached Hannah. We need Matthew to provide us with the sister's powers, otherwise we don't stand a chance in hell. Find him, he ordered. Hannah glared at him and reluctantly left in an attempt to find Matthew. At the museum, Naruto and Prue were exiting the building, the latter with feather in hand only for Officer Trudeau to bust them. The former was about to use a genjutsu on him, but pleading from Prue stopped him from doing so. As much as the situation annoyed him, Naruto complied with Prue's wishes, which are how he found himself handcuffed to a mailbox pole while Andy and Prue were sitting in the cop car. Now for the last time, Prue. Why the feather? I told you. I already had it from before. Before what? No. Go ahead, you can say it. Before breaking and entering a museum, which of course you did after you obstructed justice. How did I obstruct justice? Oh, come on, Prue, don't play dumb with me, I know you too well. You and your little friend are in a lot of trouble here. Trouble in which I can't help you out unless you help me. Maybe I should talk to a lawyer, she said in defiance. You really wanna go there? You really want me to arrest you, is that it? What's the matter with you, Prue? This isn't a game, this is very serious. Andy, please, you have to let us go. No, I can't look the other way anymore, Prue. Do you know your friend over there is wanted for questioning about identity theft? Apparently there was already a Naruto Uzumaki and he would be 20 years older than the guy over there sitting on the curb. So for once in your life just tell me what's going on. You have to trust me. It's your only choice, Prue. Andy, I'm sorry but I really have to go. No, Prue, you can't. Prue. Prue uses her power and the airbag blows up. Prue gets out of the car and heads over to Naruto, who nodded and broke the cuffs with ease. Don't hurt him, okay? She told him as Naruto did a single hand gesture and Andy collapsed in mid-step. I'll rewrite his memories of the last hour. He'll be confused and dazed for a while but nothing permanent. Come on, let's get in the car, we need to hurry back to the mansion, he said as he placed Trudeau back into his car. The two of them went back to her car and drove off. Rex was sitting at his desk waiting impatiently for good news. Hannah comes flying through the door and lands on the floor. I found Matthew, she stated, dusting herself off to hide her embarrassment. I can see, Rex replied, glancing over at Matthew, who had come to stand next to Hannah in front of Rex's desk. Matthew walks in. You didn't tell me the witches were being protected by Melinda's pet. He angrily flung the accusation as Rex and Hannah shared a glance of confusion before Rex began refuting the accusation. I'm afraid I have no idea what you're talking about. Rex was genuinely confused by Matthew's insinuation. Melinda's so-called guardian. It's Uzumaki. I know it. I thought it was merely his descendant and my charm reacting to it, but that annoying behavior of his is impossible to replicate, even among kin. Because of his interference I wasn't able to get the witch's power. Well, now that you know, you have the advantage, don't you? With your protection charm and the sisters' inability to use their powers on you, it's only a matter of time. They'll probably regroup at their home trying to come up with a plan. That's where you can attack them. If those witches are anything like their ancestor, then they'll die before willingly giving up their powers. Well, old boy, they are Warren women. Attack them where it hurts the most, Rex told them, placing a gun on the table. Their heart. Prue and Naruto returned to the mansion where the others were waiting. They hand Melinda the feather, to which she places it in the pouch. Great, so now all we have to is wait for the pretty boy to show up and banish him, Naruto said as Matthew blinks into the living room. He fired off his gun. The bullets soared through the air as Piper instinctively threw up her hands and froze Matthew and the bullets, just as Naruto went about freezing the bullets as well. When Piper's powered faded, frozen bullets fell to the ground. Matthew responded in turn by using telekinesis to send the four witches flying. Bastard! Naruto snarled as he yanked out shuriken and flung them with deadly accuracy, only for Matthew to wave his hand and freeze them in place. So satisfying, he said as the objects hung there in the air. After so many years I get to end the war in line. Any last words before I finish you all off? Yeah, plan B, Naruto shouted as Matthew was immediately blindsided by a double attack from two human-sized summoned toads. Even after all this time, Naruto's connection with the Toad clan was not severed. Faster than Matthew could react, the toads used their blades to make quick work of his tendons. When the attack ended, Matthew landed on the ground in a bloody and cut-up mess, his body convulsing and twitching as he coughed up blood from his mouth. The Warren women recovered and came over. The charmed sisters looked away as they weren't used to this kind of sight. Yes, Matthew was an enemy, but he was still relatively human, and so far they haven't come across this sort of crossroads yet. Melinda then began the chant. Outside of time, outside of gain, no only sorrow, no only pain. Matthew's broken body was swept up into a small vortex as he was sucked into the locket. That's one problem taken care of, he said as he went to the window and peered out. Somehow that locket found itself in Prue's possession, and sure enough he caught sight of a woman that unmistakably fit Hannah's suspicion. And for the final time we come back to Buckland's. I followed him. He failed. What do we do now? Upon seeing Matthew's failure, Hannah didn't stick around. I don't know. We're gonna have to think of something fast though. He's gonna be none too pleased to learn that we have failed. It wasn't a complete failure, right? I mean, we ousted them, proved they were the charmed ones, that has to count, she said with a little hopefulness, yet her fear was apparent. It'll buy us a little bit of time, but precious little, Rex countered, desperately trying to pull a plan together. Hannah jumped to her feet in her frustration. You should have listened to me, Rex. We should have taken care of them ourselves, she snapped, letting her frustration out. Rex narrowed his eyes dangerously at her and advanced quickly. You're right, Hannah. We should have done that, he agreed, harshly grabbing the back of her hair and pulling it back. At the police station, Andy was informing Morris of the strange incident he encountered the other night. You're gonna wake a judge at this hour? Are you nuts? Daryl argued as Andy irritably pulled his jacket on. I'm getting an arrest warrant. End of discussion. Andy decided, glaring defiantly at his partner. He reached down to grab his keys of his desk and turned to leave. Based on what? Stealing a feather. He will bust your rank. You will be cleaning out parking meters for a living. So I should just let it go, is that it? What about Prue's evading arrest? Am I supposed to let that go too? Damn right. Unless you want to tell the judge exactly how that little lady got away from you. By the way, exactly how did she get away from you? I don't wanna talk about it, he said as he turned to leave. Trudeau, take my advice. Let it go. Don't embarrass yourself, Daryl insisted, leaving Andy at the door. In the attic, the quintet was gathered as they prepared to send Melinda off. Piper joins her sisters around the table. Melinda was dressed in her normal clothes and hands Phoebe's dress back to her. Oh, we can't take those back, Phoebe began sadly. Melinda looked at her in confusion. Why not? She wondered. Because that means you're leaving, Phoebe finished. Well, I have to go, Melinda replied gently. Why? Why can't you stay here and have the life that you should have had? Phoebe asked with a frown. Because this isn't my time. It's your time, and Prue's and Piper's, Melinda explained, with a glance at each of the sisters in turn. We don't mind sharing, Piper added as she wanted Melinda to stay as well. Piper felt like she was learning about something, feeling something that had been missing from her life. You three give me great joy. I've seen the charmed ones. Good witches. Women of strength and grace. Phoebe takes Melinda's hand and holds it up to her heart. Tell me what you see. I see the future of many more generations of my beautiful daughters. I see my dreams fulfilled. Oh, thank you for that, she said as she went over and pulled Naruto into a hug. You'll take good care of them, that, I know, won't ever change. Of course, Melinda. Take care, okay? Anyone who wants to hurt them will have to get through me, he said as Melinda stepped back. Taking one more glance at the blonde, she placed the locket back on and joined her descendants, and they all joined hands. Melinda Warren, blood of our blood, we release you. Blessed be, my daughters. I love you, she told them as a flurry of golden white stardust surrounded her in a flurry. After a few moments they faded and they disappeared. Phoebe slowly pulled her hands away. I'm gonna miss her, she admitted. Me too, Piper agreed. We can always bring her back, Prue said as she pulled the other two into a hug. I suppose I should go work on the damages now, Naruto said as he exited the attic. So can I finally get an answer as to why you've been asking so weird? Removing herself from the hug, Prue went after Naruto. He was halfway down the stairs when Prue caught him by the shoulders. I'm sorry, she said, placing her hands around him. I guess I felt threatened. Threatened? By what? By the fact you had a history with Melinda apparently, and well, I guess I was worried that I may not stand out, or you. She began rattling on when Naruto turned around and kissed her to shut her up. Trust me, what I like about you no woman can replicate. But now we have something else to worry about, namely your boss and coworker who want to kill you and your sisters, he told her as this time around they were going to go on the offensive. Chapter 11. Yet another dream sequence was going on between Piper and her dream lover. Piper, Anya, as Dwayne had started calling her, was listening to his story about one of his friends. So they're expecting children now. They want me to the godfather, he said as he brushed Piper's hair. So did they pick out any names? Piper asked, curious as she always had a soft spot for children. People always did tell her she had a bit of a maternal instinct. No, they haven't decided yet. Christina will be giving birth in 2 months and Anna is due in a few weeks. As Piper was listening to Dwayne's story, she was wondering if she could come to terms with the man's background. He had told her about his own past relationships and he was a practitioner of polygyny. The idea of more than one woman sharing a man seemed ludicrous to her. Every instance of such a thing was portrayed negatively or as some comic or media-based fantasy where the girls were forced to like the guy for some contrived reason. All those seemed to be some sort of odd wish fulfillment fantasy with an unlikely protagonist. Piper only saw a few episodes of particular anime during a summer where she was babysitting to save money, and what she saw was disgraceful. Often how the leads were usually big-breasted brainless beauties, and how all these girls apparently went for wimpy, geeky, often weak, and not all that bright men, or in some cases were scum. She felt it was nothing more than garbage that created fictional women with exaggerated figures and fit nothing more than fetishes and character types than people with actual emotions or character. And from what she heard, the main character usually always end up with the tsundere character. Out of curiosity and mostly boredom, Piper looked up the term and couldn't believe that the most popular of these character types were an over-emotional and stubborn girl, often exaggerated into a violent bitch, and just how contrived and overused so many tropes were. So like most people, because of stuff like that in her limited experience, she had a particular view of anime that didn't help her view on things, but Dwayne's assistant on looking at something from a different cultural aspect had her reevaluating things. Helping her see that unlike most stories or fiction portrayed polygamy, that it wasn't some greedy and rich idiot or some fat sleaze having sex with a bunch of busty women who had little to no personality. He had told her stories about many of his other friends and even himself who value the family and the closeness. "How about you, Anya? Have you thought about children?" he asked as the woman snuggled up against him. "A little, but I'm afraid you know that I might be putting them in danger. I mean, what if they get hurt? What if I won't be strong enough to protect them? Hey, what have I told you about doubting yourself?" he said, leaning over and placing a chaste kiss on her lips. "Just relax," he said as he kissed her again. The two of them started to get passionate. Edited out. For unrated version, head to archive of our own. "Damn, you're amazing, Anya," Dwayne whispered as he still felt the sensations coursing through his body. "You keep treating me to something like that, you'll ruin me for anyone else," she said with a grin as she hooked her hand around his neck and drew him up with a kiss. "That's the idea," he said as he rubbed his cheek against her nipple, causing her to moan. Her beautiful skin glistening with sweat as the musk of sex stung his nose. "Now, since this is a dream and all, let's see how many times I can make you come before you have to wake up," he said as their love-making began anew until Piper had to wake up to begin the first day of training. "This is inhuman, waking us up this early in the morning," Phoebe whined as her and her sisters found themselves in a forest. The three of them were also wearing bland tops and pants that Naruto had left out for them. She was so busy wiping the sleeping crust out of her eyes with her palm she didn't notice Naruto appear in front of her until she removed her hands and let out a small scream, seeing a sharp object of it inches from her face. "Your enemy is not going to care whether or not if you had a good night's sleep. They could care less about your job, having a normal life, or anything else in your life. You should all forget notions of just trying to be normal. You are a charmed one now, and as a result, powerful and dangerous individuals will want you dead. Whether you retain your magic or not won't mean anything either. Reputation alone will be reason enough for them to want you dead. Henceforth, it's imperative that you girls learn to defend yourself and to not just rely on your powers. For when your powers are ineffective, you must be ready to fight with anything from weapons to hand to hand. There is also the case when your opponent might be immune to physical attacks, then you use something that they don't know about and have no hope of learning about. Jutsu," he said as he performed a series of hand seals, and out of a cloud of smoke 3 chairs appeared. "You three might want to take a seat. I'm going to tell you all about chakra, and it's going to be a pretty big info dump," he said, gesturing to the seats. "Any reason why you couldn't explain all this back at the mansion?" Prue asked as she brought her hand to her mouth to shield a yawn as Naruto grinned. "Didn't want to tear up the mansion with some of my demonstrations," he answered as he began explaining about chakra. Chakra is essential to jutsu and is composed of physical energy presented in every cell in our body and spiritual energy gained from exercise and experience. Mixing them together, they can be channeled through the chakra circulatory system, which is to chakra as the regular circulatory system is to blood, to any of the 361 chakra points known as tenketsu in the body. What most don't know that despite several biological differences between humans in corresponding universes, many of the deeper genetic makeup is the same. Henceforth, the 361 points in your body can be awakened by the right means. Normally beyond a certain age learning to use chakra is thought impossible, but with the seals I can apply to you 3 a portion of your magic can be converted to chakra allowing you to use jutsu. Now to use jutsu you have to channel chakra through your body by the use of hand seal that control the flow of chakra throughout the body and can increase or decrease the flow of chakra along with mixing the different ratio of energies. Of course everyone is born with an affinity towards a specific element and with each dimension or depending on the fighting style some elements are stronger or weaker than others. And Naruto continued on explaining about various other things about the 5 main elements, the sub-elements, Keki Genkai and the 6th element of Yin and Yang. He then began explaining more about the chakra circulatory system and about the different types of jutsu known as nin, gen, and taijutsu. Finally he gave them a demonstration of a jutsu. Tiger, hare, boar, dog, earth release, earth-style wall. Out of the ground a solid wall of earth sprouted from the ground causing soil and grass to fall to the ground as a tall and sturdy body of earth stood high. Whoa! Piper exclaimed, her sisters having similar sentiments. I can't say for sure you ladies will be capable of feats such as this, but it's worth a try. Though, it'll depend on your reserves and control of chakra. The ability to control and conserve your chakra will grow along with your skill. Once you gain the ability to mold and manipulate to the highest extent you'll be able to use abilities that'll easily put you on par with enemies you would normally stand no chance against. Though, we'll be going through the basics before we worry about shape and nature transformation. He said as he began going on about the hand seals. Tori, I, Inu, Tatsu, Ushi, Tora, Mi, Ne, Uma, Suru, Yu, and Hitsuji. The main 12 hand seals which translate into bird, boar, dog, dragon, ox, tiger, snake, rat, horse, monkey, hare, and ram respectively. Certain hand seals are necessary to channel the right flow of chakra. As for instance tiger is affiliated with fire and snake for earth. As Naruto was explaining all this Naruto had sent out a Kage Bunshin to go retrieve a disc that contained all this data so the sisters could study over it in their free time as he didn't expect for them to complete memorize or understood everything from the info dump. He was just giving them a brief rundown for the sake of it as he talked about other hand seals and even the 8 gates. From what Naruto saw while the reaction times and combat skills of many of the beings here were impressive they didn't stand any chance at all in comparison to many of the beings he had said. Capable of reaction time and combat that would blow the mind of many of the beings stationed on this planet. And for some reason he began wondering who would win in a fight. The chanting magic users in America or the wand-waving ones in Britain? Then he shook his head thinking nah. The ones in Britain were a bit too cowardly and most of their officials in charge were incompetent, racist, or just plain corrupt and stupid. And to think so many of them made fun of Americans. Why did most of the intelligent ones have to be the ones considered lower class or non-magical? Now that would have the recruiting process that much easier. I hope you girls are ready because I'm not going to go easy on you. This is going to be hell so I suggest you clear your schedule that doesn't pertain to work. He said as he unsealed a bottle of ink for the seals. A few days had passed as the sisters found themselves trying to get used to this new addition to their schedule. One in addition was trying to deal with her romance situation. She was in the middle of the floor in the attic, absently flipping through the pages of the Book of Shadows. She was hoping since there was a truth spell maybe there was a spell that would reveal the meaning of dreams. She crossed her legs and leaned back against a nearby box. She was looking for a spell, any spell that would allow her to maybe reveal the identity of her dream man. The door of the attic opened slowly, startling Piper enough to make the book fall out of her lap. Prue wandered into the room, arms crossed and still half asleep. Piper, it's 5 in the morning, Prue yawned. What are you doing up here? She walked over to the sofa that Piper was leaning against and sat down. I know, Piper sighed. She lifted the book up off of the floor and put it back in her lap. I couldn't sleep. Hell, I'm surprised you can still move. Prue said as she leaned over Piper's shoulder and looked down at the book. Piper in comparison to her sisters was the least physically fit and active. Prue, do you think we can do this? I mean this whole power of 3 thing? Piper worriedly asked. We've been doing well so far and we really don't have much of a choice. At least we have help with all this instead of going in blind. Prue answered to put her sister at ease. Yeah, so what are you going to do about your work situation? I took a few days off from work. Until we know more about whom the ones plaguing us are, I don't feel comfortable going about my day wondering if I'm going to be attacked. Well, at least that's one less problem to worry about. Piper got up and placed the Book of Shadows back on its pedestal. Prue, do you think we might rely on Naruto a little too much? Piper asked as she grabbed Prue's hands and helped her to her feet. What do you mean? I mean, I know he's being a great help and all, but what happens when we find ourselves in a situation and he can't help us or isn't around? Well, that's what the training is for, more or less. Given some time, the girls would be able to defend themselves effectively. Is there something bothering you? No. It's just I don't want to be a burden to the guy or become over-reliant on him, you know. And another small part of her afraid that he might up and leave one day. I understand what you mean. Anyway, you should be getting back to bed. You have to work in a few hours. Prue said as Piper groaned. Don't remind me, she said as they left the attic. Blinking into the attic, 3 figures had appeared. One was a young woman with lower back-length brunette hair done in the style of a was wearing a midriff-bearing leather top and black leather pants with black heels with a single ankle strap. She looked to be in her late 20s with black rings on her middle fingers with jewel-like objects grafted onto them. The second was an older with shaved head and scraggly beard. He was the tallest of the 3, easily about 6'5" or 6'6", wearing a sleeveless and shirtless vest showing off his very fit and muscular figure. He, like the others, were also wearing leather pants along with tripled lace black and silver combat boots. He also had a straight nose and strong chin. The last of the trio was a thin and wiry-looking young man with thin rectangular frame glasses and dirty blonde hair, wearing a cream and lime green t-shirt and leather pants. Quite the odd mix of colors, but the dam didn't clearly care. Now, are you sure all 3 sisters are in the house? The woman asked the young lanky man. I watched the front door all night. None of them left the mansion. So are you going to hurry up and do the spell or what? He whined as he nervously watched the door. Stop being a little pussy chameleon. Do you not wish for power, or will you continue being a coward? The large muscular dressed him down. Will you two shut up? The woman hissed. Keep your eye out in case one of them decides to enter the attic and sees us. We didn't sacrifice Kellerdun as bait to lead that man away just to blow our chance for you 2 idiots to alert them. Single quote. The brunette then carefully treads outside of the attic. Carefully looking around, she slowly listened behind each door as she listened for movement. Satisfied that there was no movement, she looked inside each room as she tried to keep her eye out for the target. After 5 minutes of searching, she finally found her. Before Phoebe could react, a hand clasped her mouth and an arm snaked around her, holding her in place as she was blinked into the attic. Well, isn't she a pretty little thing and feisty too? The large intruder said as Phoebe struggled and fought against the woman's hold. Catpose, worry about your hormones later. Well, hurry up then, Raven. The man said as Phoebe struggled against the woman's grip. Now, unless you want my friends to slit the throats of your sisters, you'll do what I say and flip through the pages of the book until I tell you to stop. Despite the woman's threat, Phoebe tried to scream through her mouth to alert her sisters. Are you 2 idiots going to stand there, or are you going to help? I thought we were supposed to be standing guard. Chameleon asked as Raven snarled at him. Shut the hell up and do what I say. The woman snarled at her, to which Chameleon flinched. You don't have to yell, he said with a forlorn look and summoned a dagger. Look, I don't want to have to kill you. I really don't, but we can just as easily go get one of your sisters. You know, threaten them about how we kidnapped you and all that, and you don't want to put them through the misery of finding out you're dead, do you? He asked as he was waving the dagger every which way to his words. I mean, all you have to do is go over and open. The book suddenly flew off of the pedestal and landed on the floor across the room with an audible thud. You idiot! The woman hissed as she dragged Phoebe over to the book. The sound of movement from downstairs alerted them. Keep them busy. Raven ordered as she used her to authentically blast the book as he merely flipped over and land on a random page. She could only pray that by some dumb luck she would land on the page she was looking for. Raven's focus on the book was so intense she took her focus off Phoebe for a moment. That moment was enough for Phoebe to move her positioning so she could elbow the woman that had her bound. Prue. Piper. It's a trap. Phoebe managed to scream before Raven used telekinesis to blast the youngest charmed one across the room as her sisters entered. Phoebe's cry alerted them enough to avoid Chameleon's dagger. I missed, the lanky man cried out. You wuss, a real man uses his musk. He was frozen on the spot by Piper throwing up her hands and before he could be blown out the window by Prue. Raven used her power to use her frozen ally as a projectile and slammed him into the two witches. Truth spell. Fuck. The woman snarled as she used her power again, only this time to the book to react with a flash of magical power and landed on its spine as it opened to a random page. Finding a lover. She rolled her eyes. Talk about desperate. She snorted derisively before turning her attention back to her companion. What the fuck are you doing, Chameleon? Restrain the middle sister's arms and the oldest eyes so they can't attack us. The woman ordered. You am okay. He dumbly said, only for a chair to be broken over his head by Phoebe. Staggering slightly, the man disappeared from sight only to strike Phoebe in the face, causing her to stagger. Over here, he called as Phoebe reacted to his voice and swung only to miss. No here, or am I here? He taunted as Phoebe flailed around wildly. Over maybe I'm. He tapped on her shoulder. A premonition hit Phoebe at that moment. She was on the couch in the living room. She could hardly see and she had trouble breathing as her sisters, Naruto, Leo, and some woman she didn't recognize were crowded around her. Phoebe. I'm sorry. Oh God, I'm so sorry. A grief-stricken and teary Prue said over and over again. As a greenish and white glow were coming from Naruto and Leo's hand respectively to no affect. It's not working. Fuck. We need a doctor. Hold on, Phoebe. Just hold on. Naruto shouted as he stood up and disappeared in a flash. Will this help? Chameleon said as he made himself tangible only to be frozen by Piper. With a non-moving target, Phoebe struck him in the face as hard as she could, resulting in him being sent flying back. You okay, Phoebes? Yeah, I'm. Piper, watch out. Phoebe screamed at Piper, who spun and tried to react only to be kicked and sent flying into the attack by the large burly man. Nearly breathless, Piper was able to throw up her hands and freeze the man again. While this was going on, Raven was still telekinetically flinging the book until it finally fell onto the page she was looking for. Perfect, she said to herself upon seeing the spell her ancestor had created and was thought to have been lost by mortal record, the spell to swap identities, so she began reading the spell. As she finished looking it over, she was about to narrate it when the Book of Shadows was yanked out of her eyesight by Prue's telekinesis. You picked the wrong family of witches to screw with, Prue said, narrowing her eyes as she attempted to launch Raven out of the window. But the warlock raised her hand and used the power at the same time. After a bit of a power struggle, Prue was launched back against the wall, causing a crack, and fell to her feet. Struggling to her feet and breathing heavily, Raven taunted, so this is the power of a charmed. I'm disappointed. The woman remarked with false bravado. It took nearly everything I had. I have to do this quick. The woman thought as she chanted the spell. All 6 occupants in the house were illuminated in a bright white, which lit the dark attic. Within a few seconds they all stopped glowing and the room was dark once again, dimly lit by the rising sun. Now let's put this power to work, Raven said with a grin as she threw up her hands to freeze Phoebe, only for a recovering chameleon to freeze. What the hell? 3 of us and 3 witches. It should have worked. What did I do wrong? She angrily thought as she watched the charmed ones recover. This isn't over, witches, she said as she blinked over to Chameleon and Catpose both before blinking them out of there. Are you two okay? Prue asked as she helped Piper to her feet. Yeah, I'm fine, Piper answered with a groan. Prue's focus then turned to her other baby sister, Phoebe. All alive, she said, wiping her face and nose with the sleeve of her shirt. The woman's perfume was nauseating to say the least. You okay, Prue? Any injury? You mean besides my pride? The woman gloomily replied. So what the hell was that all about? Piper wondered as the three of them went over to the book and read its title. Not to state the obvious, but it looks like our problem of the week has begun, she said, knowing they were going to have to call on their blonde helper for this latest problem. Speaking of which, he had been tracking down a mysterious man who had been skulking around the mansion. Earlier that morning he had pursued the man in question into the woods. The person in question was a tall, very thin, and tan-looking man with long and brown hair, and he was running from his life as he was being pursued. The person pursuing him was a young woman with short black hair wearing a red clock, leather pants, and white halter neck top. The woman swung her as a fireball erupted from his hands and collided with one of the trees the warlock hid behind, leaving a scorch mark. Forming an energy ball in his hand, the man ducked from behind the tree and threw it at the young woman, who spun and used her cloak to block the energy ball, causing it to disperse. Summoning some daggers in her hand, she threw them in pinpoint accuracy as they pierced the demon's hands, sticking them into the ground and causing him to howl in pain. "Well done, my apprentice." Naruto congratulated the young woman. "I'm glad to see all the training hasn't gone to waste. That and Kali's leftover demon residue seem to have increased how fast your development rate would have initially been. Naruto-sensei, when will I get to reunite with PH? The Hallowell sisters." Aviva corrected herself. "I mean, is it wise for you to leave them unguarded for so long? I can't fight all their battles for them. Before it was prior to receiving their powers, so they were defenseless, but now they can defend themselves, which now means it's time for them to learn how to defend themselves and get used to how their life is forever changed. And to answer your earlier question, we'll have the reunion in due time. Right now we have to focus on your development first. So I want you to wait here and look after our prey." "I can't blink." "Why can't I blink?" the warlock demanded. "Couldn't have you running away now, can we? You're going to tell me everything you know about the ones attacking the Hallowell sisters." When Naruto arrived back to the mansion, the last thing he expected for an attack to occur the moment his clones dispelled. "This is sort of a nasty bruise," Naruto said as he lightly pressed his fingers against the bruise, causing Phoebe to wince. "Think of it as a badge of honor and a motivator." "You mean you can't heal it? It really kind of hurts," she whined, despite the fact there was a small smile on her face. "You'll live," he said with a grin as she pouted. "I'm sorry girls, it looked like they were planning this out for a while," he said as he went over the turn of events in his head. He went over every detail the sisters told him. "Now are you sure this other demon froze? I saw it with my own eyes, that warlock threw her hands up and the other one froze. So your abilities still work, right?" Naruto asked Piper as she nodded. "That is odd. It must be some sort of weird side effect. Speaking of which, maybe it's for the best if you don't have clones patrolling around anymore." Prue spoke up as her sisters looked at her in disbelief. "Are you kidding? You must be joking." Both Piper and Phoebe respectively cried out. "Hear me out," she said before her sisters would go off on a little tirade. "We became too complacent and let our guard down." She started remembering Piper's words. "Naruto, we appreciate everything you've done so far, but we need to do more to fight our own battles. If you take care of every little threat that comes our way, we'll never become stronger ourselves, so while we appreciate the guards, we have to start reacting to threats ourselves." "I understand where you're coming from," he reacted with a nod. "Though, that's only for the minor threats. If we're talking about major threats or something along those lines of someone close to you that can't defend themselves, then the patrols will be okay," she said, placing a kiss on his cheek. Noticing her sister's curious glance and realizing what she had done, she quickly changed the subject to which everyone will probably object to. "I decided to go up to Buckland's and see if Rex and Hannah are behind this." "Okay, now you're just being plain suicidal. There is no way you're going up there where the warlocks who are trying to kill us there." Piper putting her foot down was a rarity, but when she did, it was a sight to behold. "I'll be okay, Piper. They haven't done anything, so they must be waiting for something," Prue reasoned. "I agree with Piper. Prue, how do you plan on acquiring this information?" Naruto asked as he took a seat on one of the sofa legs. "Not to mention those warlocks might attack if you go off on your own. It's far too dangerous." Phoebe agreed as Prue stood her ground despite being outvoted 3-1. Look, how about this? Phoebe will come with me and maybe she can get a premonition and Naruto can watch over Piper in case they try to attack her since she has to work today. Well, it's not like we have any other leads. Naruto relented. Are you two okay with that? He asked the other two sisters. Well, I'm sure my boss won't object to an extra hand at the restaurant. We have been looking for an extra waiter. Piper reluctantly agreed. Well, not like I have much else to do. Phoebe said, mirroring Piper's shrug. The group of four got dressed and got into their cars, pulling out of the driveway and driving off unaware of the confused looks the neighbors were giving them. So we'll go into Rex's office and see if you can get a premonition off any of his things. Prue explained as Phoebe nodded. Right when Prue was about to open the door, it was pulled open and none other than Rex was exiting the office. Hello there, Prue and Miss Phoebe Hallowell. Is there something I can help you with? Being a quick thinker, Phoebe quickly thought of a lie. I'm looking for a job. Prue said you were hiring. She said as a look that was a mixture of being flustered and surprised form on Prue's face. Yes. She nodded. That's exactly why we're here, because this one here lacks a job. Prue said with a laugh and hooking her arm around Phoebe's neck. Can't seem to hold a job down, so I figured a simple job of being a janitor would be a start. If not just to bring a little income into the home, she said as a look of horror came across the younger sister. A janitor. There was no way anyone thought of her as janitor material, could they? Yes, I'm sure, he said as he quickly viewed into their minds. They seemed to be speaking the truth, but whenever he read into their minds, it was like some odd sensation entered his and told him he learned everything he needed to know. He knew none of the charmed ones had psychic abilities, and he began wondering if this was the result of someone else. But if there was someone out there with that power, why not expose him and his partner to the sisters? Mr. Buckland, I got the account you wanted. A woman, one of the employees said as she walked up and took notice of the small crowd. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were having a meeting. It's okay, Rory, we won't be long. Prue told her as the woman looked at her in confusion. Do I know you? The woman asked, looking at Prue with puzzlement. What are you talking about? It's me, Prue. Prue informed the woman, who was looking at her like she was crazy. Is this some sort of joke, sir? I don't know what's going on, so I'm just going to go, she said, handing the folders to Rex as she went about her daily routine. Okay, something odd is going on. Remember how those people were looking at us earlier? Phoebe whispered to Prue. This entire morning people had been looking at them like they were weird, now Rory referring to Prue as a sir. Prue quickly glanced at Rex and noticed he was just as mystified. What if it had something to deal with this morning's attack? Whatever it is, she had to find Piper and Naruto. An hour later they were back at the mansion and the duo was already there. Something freaky is going on, Piper immediately exclaimed. Everyone acted like they had no idea who I was. It was like they didn't recognize me. You're telling me one of my coworkers ACEDT like they had any idea who I was? Yet Rex recognized who I was. I think it has something to do with what happened this morning. Oh God, I think I know what's going on. Look, Phoebe said, taking off of the small hallway mirrors off the wall and setting it on the table. The girls looked in horror as they realized in the reflection they looked just like the warlocks that attacked. Piper looked like the woman warlock, Phoebe the small guy, and Prue the big guy. But wait a minute, if we look them, then that means. Piper let out a gasp of horror. Meanwhile, down in a seedier part of San Francisco, a young woman was murdered and the police was there investigating it. There was a witness and she was giving the description of the murder that was all too familiar to one police officer.